Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon and Julian.
And I'm Julian Taylor.
And welcome to our podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon and Julian here with my dearest friend, Julian Taylor.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I've no idea what to say because I'm in one part of the day, you're in another part of the day.
And Monday morning feels really early today. I overslept.
Yeah?
And it was a struggle.
Monday afternoon is feeling slightly better than Monday morning, I have to say.
That's good. That's good. How was your weekend? I know part of the answer before you get into this. I do know part of the answer. I saw some, I think it was Instagram or something. So I know what you were attending, but I did not see results.
A disaster. Bit of a disaster. So I am a football fan. I don't think I need to even say which team it is for the English or British listeners, because this is all over the news that we suffered our heaviest ever. Well, it's the heaviest defeat definitely in my lifetime. And it was the first game I managed to get to this season. I've never, ever left a game of football early. And I left after 60 minutes because I thought I've got an hour's drive home here and this is fairly futile.
How far are we? It's early in the season, though. How many games have they played? 3, 4?
6.
Has it been 6 now?
That's 6 games, yeah.
What's the overall?
I can't even remember. Too many. At the moment, that's what it feels like, too many.
I didn't know if we were looking at a positive season. So maybe give just a really quick synopsis of your team, and now they're in the Big Daddies, the big.
They're in the Big Daddy. They're in the Big Daddies League where the big money resides. Unfortunately, we didn't get any pocket money, so it looks like we're heading straight back to where we came from. So it could be a long season. So I think I'm going to just focus on the golf, not the football.
At least it's a long season. I have been meaning to tell you, actually, you need to go. I think it's the 15th of October. I'll double check that. You need to go to London. The Titans are going to play American football in London. Nashville, Tennessee Titans are going to be there.
Are they playing the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I don't remember if they're playing the Jags or the Ravens. I can look, but I've been meaning to tell you this and I have completely forgotten until last night. And I was like, I'm not going to send him a text because I don't want to wake him up. But you saying that made me think about it.
We need to check the detail here because actually I've got a really good friend who lives near here. So one of my cycling buddies, and he's got a really good friend who is actually the reporter for the Jaguars. So he's actually going down to London to meet him, have a weekend in London, and actually go to the game.
If you've never been, you need to go watch some good old American football.
Some American football.
American
football.
You won't be disappointed. I mean, unless you're expecting something totally different. But I'll find out because I think it is that day. But it would be worth going.
And you've been to where they're playing.
Or are they playing? Oh, I didn't realize where they were playing.
They're playing at Wembley. Yeah.
Nice.
So we had a little romantic weekend down there last year, didn't we? Or this year, yeah.
It was this year, yeah. I wish we could do it this time. That would be.
We need next year. We need to plan that for next year, don't we? Yeah. And then you can talk me through the finer intricacies of American football.
It's probably pretty simple and realistic, but yeah, I'm with you. If I'd known, I would have planned it this time. But maybe shifting gear.
Before you shift gear, I've got some exciting pod news for you, and I'm going to start with a question.
You say pod or pop?
Pod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Has Lindsay ever listened to the podcast?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't know.
Because Caroline was driving down south and was listening to my Spotify, and she was on her own. I wasn't with her, I hasten to add. And she said, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I had two bald guys talking safety.
And the next thing she knew, she listened to the whole thing.
She listened to the whole thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was actually the Mavis and Ray episode. And I had to laugh because she said, you're not bad, are you? I went, "Thank you very much, darling."
Wow. What did she say about me? I mean, I thought she just listened because she missed me.
She thought I carried you, but you did a good job.
That's I dare say if I asked her this. So, quick backstory: we learned that Caroline and I see a lot of things eye to eye, evidently, and that is on the opposite side of Jules. So we had a lot to talk about when we were together.
They did. Yeah, they did.
I don't know if Lindsay has. I've tried, but I'll have to I'll have to check.
You can catch up with her in November and ask her the question.
Yeah, indubitably. But thinking about that and kind of shifting a little bit, we have a topic today that is not groundbreaking. It's not really new. I did a blog on it. I'd have to look back. Maybe 2012, 2013. I didn't coin the phrase. I'm pretty confident about that. If I did, I haven't seen any positive light from that.
I was gonna say, if you did, you didn't patent it, you didn't get a copyright, and you've made no money out of it.
We really dropped the ball back in the old days where I used to work. But um, it was health and safety doesn't cost, it pays. And I'm sure it was some marketing and maybe they took it from somewhere else. I don't have a clue. But anywho, I think we've tried to, hopefully, Jules, what do you think? We've tried to take it back a little bit. We've had some great guests. We've done some good conversation more around culture. We've hit some specifics more recently, trying to get a little more in the weeds. But I think right now, maybe it's almost worth taking a step and actually think what is the benefits of health and safety. You hear a lot of times, oh well, you've got to do it, you can get slapped on the hand, or I've got to do it because company makes me, I got to do it because of OSHA or the HSE, or whatever it is. But really, if and maybe I should actually we should shift that to like, good health and safety doesn't cost, it pays. It's kind of like practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. If you practice something incorrect, you're going to have an incorrect swing or whatever it is. So maybe we should shift it a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that? I think there's a lot we could go on this. I know we've kind of drawn it focused a little bit, but what are your thoughts around that?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we talk to lots of organisations, and when you stop and think about health and safety, that it's such a broad thing, isn't it? It's easy to kind of almost sort of minimise it a bit by just talking about, oh, we're talking about health and safety. It's such a broad area, and again that again varies depending upon the type of organisation you are, what it is that you're doing, the sort of I suppose the level of risk involved in your activities. Um, but there's one thing that is common across all organisations when it comes to health and safety is that you need to invest in it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you need to invest in it. So whether that's in terms of people, whether it's in terms of systems, whether it's in terms of equipment, there is constantly a requirement to invest in health and safety. And I suppose the thing that we hear all the time, and I'm saying we, but actually probably all of the people who are listening to this pod all the time here is actually this thing about actually health and safety is just a cost, and actually trying to get that investment is a real challenge for organisations.
Yeah.
So when we're starting to think about, and we've written a couple of questions down, and a couple were, why do we need to understand, I suppose, how it pays, but also why do we need to be able to articulate that? I think it's so that when we get into that space where we're saying we need to do something here and we're going to need, let's just be really pragmatic about this, some cash to do it, some budget. Um, you need to be able to create that sort of, I suppose, that business case that makes sense to not just safety people, but the senior people within your organization to say, actually, yeah, we're prepared to spend this money. And I suppose another realism of any business when we start to think about budgets is there's only so much budget. So any organization anywhere in the world only has so much money that they can spend each year. And all the different parts of that organization you have it every year. You have these the sort of activities to sort of refine and define budgets. Okay. Um, I wish I'd maybe got our CFO on here. Who could probably talk about this far more eloquently than I can. Um, but you've got other people competing for that cash. Yeah. So every other department is going to be saying, yeah, we want to spend some cash and want to spend it on this. So actually, I think as health and safety professionals, what we have to do is get better at being able to say, actually, this is how we can support the business objectives by doing this thing around health and safety. That was a really long, rambly answer, but hopefully it made sense.
I no, I agree, and it's one of those we hate to say it, but it's you remember that slide I used to use. I mean, we still use it, but we've shifted it a lot. Where it's one process, three goals, and ultimately it equals profits. And it's because of what you just said. No matter how we view it, if we or if companies, whatever, if they don't make money, they're not going to be an operation. It's like if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, and realistically, that's sustaining at this day and time. Just sustaining. I don't know if that can exist really much anymore. If you just break even every month, you better have that spirit of just you're okay with that. You're okay with and you're happy. And I think that's maybe some places, but when you think about large scale organizations, whether it's manufacturing, construction, healthcare, whatever, that's not sustainable.
No.
And I think for me, what you hit on, it's that those two questions, which why does it matter, or why how do we understand the importance of it, and then how do you articulate it? To me, those are about the two integral initial things you have to think about. Because if you don't understand how it's good business or why it is, what do you do? Some of the hardest conversations that I have now, not being practicing all the time health and safety, meaning like not in the field having to manage it the way I used to. Now it's just consulting. But some of the most difficult conversations are the ones with safety professionals where they're like, well, we don't have any incidents. Okay, well, are you having any near misses? And to them, like, well, no. If they say that, and you say, well, yeah, we're profitable. We haven't had an incident in 3 years. We haven't had, those are when, okay, well, what's your budget right now going to it? You can talk about how does your managing go, whether it's record keeping or whatever. Oh, it's good. You can go through all this, and then but we kind of want to shift over to whatever, to putting more focus in health and safety. We want more budget for a software tool. We want more budget for a new process, whatever it is. Those are some of the most difficult conversations for me as a safety professional to have, because if you don't look at it, well, how much time are you spending doing this process, or how much time here, where can you start looking at reducing? You've already, if you have to start thinking so robustly, maybe, onto painting the picture of why adding some type of health and safety tool can benefit, or a new process, again, whatever it is, you're in an uphill battle. And those are some of the most difficult ones, because they feel like they're good. It's the ones, the organizations that start seeing gaps. Doesn't mean they're having a lot of incidents, but they see a procedural issue or whatever. That's when you start seeing, well, this is how you can show a pretty good business case as to why health and safety is not just a cost center, but it can pay you back, show the positive ROI.
You see, you're far more polite than me, Langdon, because if somebody sat there and said to me, "We've had no incidents and no near misses," I would just, I don't know whether I'm allowed to use the bullshit word, but I'm going to use it anyway. I would just call bullshit on it, um, and sort of you've got to shake people up sometimes. But I think around that same subject area, I think we've got to shake things up. And I mean, you think about some of the guests that we've had on, who've talked about we've got to change the way we think about safety. And I think this is a really key area. We've got to shake people out of this, I suppose, lethargy of just talking about incidents and talking about managing incidents, and actually get them to think of it in a bit more of an imaginative way. And and I love that slide you talked about. I'm trying to remember what the third thing was. We've got, is it quality, production, and safety?
Hmm.
Phew, I'm glad I can remember that. Yeah, yeah. Well done. I can remember three. I can remember three things.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that slide. kind of really it simply captures it for me, which is and we talked about it on JHA, didn't we, last time, where we said maybe rather than talking about job hazard analysis, talk about job analysis. So it's one thing. Actually, everything ties together, doesn't it? In terms of if you haven't got a safe organization, inherently unsafe organizations tend to have quality issues as well, and production issues, because the things all tie hand in hand, and that's really simple and obvious, isn't it, when you go back and you think about it? Because if you've got an unsafe workplace, how do people feel about getting up and going to work in the morning?
Yeah.
Do they really want to do it? And then the other side of that is, are they then looking for an out? Because I would be. So actually, what you end up with an unsafe workplace is this probably a fairly high level of churn of your people, which means you're constantly losing your knowledge and your expertise. So flip it the other way. If you can create a positive environment which is safe, you retain your people, they get more knowledge, they get better at the job, quality improves, production improves. And actually, if you're not having incidents, your production levels or your uptime is going to go up anyway. It's a win-win, isn't it? And I think it's our CEO said something. This is a while ago, and I think it's a fantastic point. Is getting the business to see that actually safety can be a great lever towards a good culture. And I really like that sort of as an idea to sell to an organization, which is most organizations are looking to drive better culture, because better culture inherently leads to better performance. And we've talked about it, haven't we? Rather than safety culture, just have one culture, safe
Yeah.
operations, one culture, whatever we want to call it. But actually, safety can be a great lever, can't it? Because through good safety, we can start to build the trust, and we can start to demonstrate that actually we want to listen and we want to hear. And we also, once we've heard, actually we want to react to things and we want to do something on the back of it. So that actually starts to sort of create that better overall business culture that leads to better performance. So um, again, I can't even remember what the question was. I've rambled for that long there, but I think that's a really key part for me is actually is starting to be able to demonstrate to an organization, okay, how does safety pay? Well, it pays because it's inherently part of all of these other things that you're trying to do, whether it's better production, whether it's better quality. Safety is just an integral part of that. It's got to be in place.
Well, and I think you think about it from, and you hit on it there. I mean, you said it a few times around culture, what that looks like. You know, you hear safety culture. How can I get a better safety culture? And for those of you that know, I'm not a proponent of safety culture. I don't like that. I like, because it's unrealistic. That's why we kind of push that safe operations mindset of thinking about it like that. I used to like which I think you could contort it, so to speak, and make it work on that too. But if you have an organization that they're open to learning, I like learning cultures, because that means, and it's not health and safety, that's anything. You're just wanting to get better. If you want to call it continuous improvement, it doesn't really matter terms, but if you think about it from that perspective, those are the organizations that they just understand what are certain aspects that have to be embedded in the process to be more fluid, maybe fluid throughout. And that's why I like safe operations, because if you think about it, we have to hit a certain profit. We have to be ensuring that everyone is health and safety. We have to ensure that we're meeting a certain production line or a production number. But if you just embed that thought throughout, everything will start to kind of flow, because it really is, and it's just what you're alluding to. If quality drops, usually your quality's dropping because your production's flying out the roof, but
Yeah.
safety is probably going to subside a little bit. I mean, we know that. But you start seeing all of those, how they really can play a correlation to one another, and if you maximize each one, you're going to usually see a better output at the end. I think that's all. When you start tying it into people, when you tying it into that's when we start seeing that engaged workers, empowered workers, it's more positive. We talk about it, negative culture can deteriorate any positive gain. Well, if you have a positive organization where people are engaged, I know there was a Gallup poll that we've used before. I don't recall. I want to say it was over 1,000 company sample size, and they were all, anywhere. I want to say 500 and above employees. But they showed when they were highly engaged, there were what I'll call acute and chronic, so short term, long term benefits from that. And engaged workers were shown to be more productive. They were shown to have better health and safety on and off the job. The company as a whole had better morale. They had greater sales numbers. So you start thinking about that, and that's shifting it from health and safety a little bit, right? That's truly engaged. And when you think about it from that perspective, if you start showing that positive, I think, culture, that positive creation of really being engaged, you start to see you start to see how health and safety can benefit that, and then you start to see what that does for the overarching business. And that's why we care. It's not just what Jimbo does here on the floor, but it's about what Jimbo does at home, to understanding how that correlates to the job. And same way for, Julie, what she does at the job, how does that correlate to the home life? That's when you start realizing the true, and we could throw in the C word if we wanted to, the word that must not be named, about what that did. But I think from that perspective, it really did show a off the job, on the job, a correlation of health and safety. And when we start thinking about it for why it doesn't cost, it pays, that's when you start really thinking there's a lot of things that can show a positive ROI, just like you said, more than just looking at an incident.
Yeah. I think just sitting and listening there was you talked about successful businesses, and um, it, I suppose a question to throw out to the audience is reflect on the businesses that you have worked at, and what was it that made them successful. And more often than not, if I look back on my career, it wasn't necessarily about having the most amazing product or service. It was commonly it was the people. It's people that make businesses successful. And then you reflect on, okay, so what did they do with their people to make it successful? And actually, they invested in them. That's as simple as it is, isn't it? You look at. I'm thinking of two businesses absolutely in particular. And luckily enough, one of them is the one I still work for. But but it's that investment in training of people. That's one of the key things that I've seen in both places was they both had an absolute focus on training, and people regularly got trained. But also they empowered people. So it's actually about allowing people to actually do things and get involved with different things, and maybe step outside of the norm and do extra things sometimes, in order to upskill and to help them to move on. But actually, that investment in people is what then drove the success of the organization. And again, safety is a great way to start to do that in terms of training people, empowering them to do things. But most importantly, I think is part of that people thing is actually showing you've heard their voice. So it doesn't matter what part of the organization it is, what kind of business discipline it is, show that you've heard their voice, because actually that actually shows that their voice has some value. Yeah.
Well, and then you start looking at it, I think, from when you listen and you actually take, I've given the Post-it note example before, when we did all this little project and put all these Post-it notes of all these great ideas on the wall, and then at the end of the class, nobody took a picture. The teacher or whatever you want to call them didn't take a picture, didn't do anything, but then the class just, these are all great ideas, blah blah yada yada, great, great job. And we were looking, and sometimes, I mean, you know how I can be, Jules. We were like, man, but this time, I guess I should shift it a little. This time we were looking like this actually was pretty good. We put thought into it. We went, that sucker took every one of those, just put them off and threw them in the trash. And I know I've given that, but you think about what does that do? That created negativity. As soon as he did that,
Yeah.
I was just like, you know, unfreaking believable. Are you kidding me right now? Because that just diminished all the work, all the time, the camaraderie, the working together. It squashed all of that. And I think that's applicable. Oh man, it was just, and the other guy who I'm really close with, he's even he's even worse than me. If I called him right now, he would die laughing, and probably have some choice words and agree. But you think about that, on the flip side, if you utilize that and you start drawing engagement from that, then you actually take that to leadership and start. What are some different aspects? Maybe it could be what could improve your jobs, whatever. You're going to start seeing a positive, even if you are one of those organizations that maybe your incidents you don't have a lot of investment into it, because you don't have a lot. Fantastic. But if it's something that can simplify the way the job has been done, so you're simplifying a process, you are actually mitigating the potential for more serious injuries, which I think a lot of we've done really well historically about minimizing the majority of the typical, your slip, trip, and falls, your fall from, we've done really well at mitigating the majority of those. But if it's something that you look that could prevent a chronic incident, or injury, or a serious injury, then you start seeing there might not be a right up front return on investment, but you're building that case for a later. So you're starting to see how it can save money, or maybe it's admin time doing an Excel, whatever. When you start looking at that and thinking that, one, you're driving better engagement, two, you're simplifying a process, which I think is, you can do your spill on Kiss, but I think that's still very, I mean, it's applicable. Keeping it simple and simplifying processes. I mean, who wants to do, had you rather do something that's a half page of notes or a full page to 2 pages process? I mean, I know what I'd rather do, whether you call it lazy or whatever, but there is an aspect of understanding the simplicity of something and how you can maximize the benefit of that versus a convoluted, complex process where maybe things start to seem, the output starts to seem a little more fuzzy because of that difficulty kind of seeing the end game.
Yeah. Just going back to your story about the Post-it notes, you're just making me laugh because a similar situation. I can remember being at a management conference with a big business that I worked at, and they sent us away to think. I can't remember what exactly it was, but to go away and come up with some strategy or other for something within the business. And so they sent us to do sort of into sort of breakout groups, and we're in this breakout group and we got a flip chart and we're writing all this stuff on it and we're thinking we're doing a really good job. And the owner's son came in and took one look and he went, no, 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 you've got that all wrong. Ripped the sheet off and then started writing out, you should think about this, this, and this, and then walked out again. So you kind of sat there thinking it's almost like somebody who's written the minutes for the meeting before the meeting's even happened.
Yeah.
Why on earth have you sent us away to think about this if you just want to do it your way? Um, and again, absolute flipping atmosphere vacuum and just killed any sort of sense of empowerment straight away. But going back to your simplicity thing, I think you can apply that even to sort of some of the things that you want to use as considerations or think about when you're going to talk to the rest of your business around how safety pays. So, I mean, a couple of things we've got written down here are actually understanding who your business's customers are. And it's interesting. Sometimes people don't always know that. It sounds crazy, but know who your business's customers are, and particularly in any kind of business to business situation. What are those? What expectations do those customers have around health and safety? Because particularly in manufacturing, most times when you look at sort of the process for winning business, there's tenders involved, yeah,
Yeah.
requests for information, whatever you want to call it. And often in those documents, there's a requirement. I'm sure some of the people listening have had to fill out parts of those documents, um, in order for their business to win new contracts. So again, actually, that's a really pragmatic, simple thing to think about in
Yeah.
terms of why do we need to do safety well? Because actually, safety helps us to win future business and to secure the state of the business. And you talked earlier about a business breaking even. Well, actually, breaking even is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Anything anything breaking even and less is a bad thing because you're going backwards. And it means you can't invest, you can't grow. Actually, the future of your business is probably going to be under threat if that's the
Mhm.
situation. Um, so actually, how do you win business? Who are your customers? And what are their safety needs? It's really important to understand that as a safety professional because that's one of your. I was going to say lever again, but I need to say lever with you in the room, don't I?
Lever, lever, tomato, tomato, aluminum, aluminium.
No, it's definitely aluminium.
Oh, that's a lot of extra letters.
There's a lot of extra letters. Um, but it's a really important thing to understand because it is part of the argument to say this is why we need to do safety. And then again, thinking about really pragmatic, simple things. Okay, um, we think about what happens when it goes wrong, and the first thing that happens when it goes wrong is whatever you do, it stops. Yeah. So whether it's construction, whether it's manufacturing, whatever business you're in, it stops if there's some kind of incident. And again, it's that ripple effect, isn't it? It's almost you almost need to do a bit of a root cause analysis here, don't you? Okay. So what happens if we have an incident? Production stops. Okay. If production stops, what happens? Yeah. Um, Means that actually we don't get goods to the warehouse. If you don't get goods to the warehouse, what happens? We don't deliver to customers. If you don't deliver to customers, what happens? Um, Actually it starts to damage reputation. Yeah. If it damages reputation, what happens? And the ultimate thing is potentially it means lost contracts or it means penalties because you've not delivered on time. Let's try and flip it around. Let's be positive. Let's say why it pays. Well, actually, it pays. Actually, if we can improve the uptime through a reduction of incidents and a reduction of stoppages, actually we get a better reputation. We win more business. Yeah, we're trusted as a supplier. So there are some really simple, pragmatic reasons why safety is such a critical thing and why it needs this investment.
Well, and even no, I totally agree. And even if they're not having incidents, if you can look at it and start seeing from the admin time, right, of what you're spending, whether you're managing it through an Excel or looking at old processes or that are kind of antiquated or whatever it is, if you start looking at it and thinking of from that perspective, or you're using equipment that is 50 years old, and it's been refined and that's great, but it's still a potential serious slip away or minor slip away, I should say, from being a serious incident or whatever it is. I think there are a lot of ways that you can look at minor tweaks which can still show a positive return on investment. When we think about it from how some organizations are really, I don't know what the right word, maybe forward in health and safety, and a lot of them it is because, right, they've experienced serious catastrophic incidents, but a lot just realized, you know what, if we put a little extra focus on whatever in integrating health and safety into this new process, meaning we're just going to talk to the safety professional, we're going to talk to the employees and say, could this job be done better? What other control, engineering control, could we put in place? What easier machine guard to easier lever to pull if there's something, whatever it is. I think that's when you start seeing you are integrating health and safety in that process, and you're going to see a positive return on investment, because even if it's an upfront cost, if it is potentially thinking of something and taking into account something that could prevent an incident or could prevent extensive time having to be spent on that, you start to see the return coming in. I think about a tool I did work. I don't know, I've used it before, but it was a brake rotor facility and for vehicles, and they had lifting assist, and I
Just say
know
that.
what you're going to
Just
say,
say that again. Just say
automobiles, and
automobiles.
they, vehicles. and they made an assist, so it was basically pulling off the line.
The only reason I stop you sorry, the only reason I stop you is you sound like the sheriff out of the James Bond film where you say vehicles.
I do not. So he is from Louisiana. That's a little further south,
Okay, okay.
little Cajun country. He, but they pulled up the rotors off the lift and they would move it onto a pallet. It was, I don't remember, maybe 5 feet. I'd have to measure. But sometimes he'd walk this way around the pallet. Sometimes, the right side, left side. And we did basically a full blown analysis on the job, looking at for hazards, looking at for how to make the task easier, yada yada. And I didn't even notice, and I didn't ask any questions. I just wanted to watch it a few times. They allowed us to record it, and then I watched another one similar, and I saw that guy had a lift assist, and I was like, "That's strange." So I went back, and I had missed it, but it was because it was up and kind of, behind and up, and I was like, "He's got a lift assist. This he's not using. This guy is using his." So we just started talking. Was it taking longer? No. Was it blah blah whatever? But that guy wanted to get a workout. Now his right side was noticeably a little larger, and I can honestly say that not as a joke. I mean, but upon conversation, he was like, right now I feel good. I'm healthy. I'm here. Long hours. I want to get a workout. So yeah, it's kind of two for one. That was, eh, I'm young. I was like, I get that. On the flip side, you see a company that has made an investment in trying to improve the job and help that worker, that one, they didn't implement. Well, they implemented it, but they didn't reinforce. And two, he's not doing the job the way that it's now properly designed. So he's not doing it in the safest, healthiest way possible. He's doing it within his means, and most likely he is going to be fine. But if he continues that, you start thinking, what is a positive ROI? Well, if you do instill a piece of equipment or a tool, push using it because that helps to prevent. And the time of how many he was doing versus the other gentleman, I don't remember. If it was drastic, I would have remembered it. And it wasn't. So it must have been negligent. So you think, what is it? It's starting to, if you get budget, if you actually are taking into account what can make things safer, reinforce it, push it. And that's when you start seeing that positive benefits.
I mean, I'm just thinking about what you're talking about there, and you just use that as an example, is if he damages himself or injures himself, okay, he's off work, so then we've got to bring somebody in to do the job, so there's a cost there. We've got to train them, additional cost, yeah? Takes a while for them to get up to speed, so you've got probably a loss in productivity, possibly quality. So it's again, it's who else in the organization can you be talking to? Because immediately in my mind there, you start talking to your HR colleagues, and actually you're starting to show the benefit to them of actually reinforcing safety and doing safety well. I was the other thing I'm kind of reflecting on was our friend Nick from Lotus Cars, and
Yeah.
again, I loved what he had to say the other day when we were talking, and he talked about they were literally rebuilding the factory or resetting the factory to produce a new type of car. And actually, it was great because all of these different parts of the organization were involved in the design of the process. So, right from the start, the process is designed in the right way, is then managed in the right way. And again, it then leads through to this empowerment and productivity sort of elements that we've just been talking about.
Hmm. Well, and I think that, however we view it, that's what's pertinent, right? It's how can we figure out where to make those improvements that, for organizations that, and I know we've kind of, conversation has actually shifted to those maybe of how you can paint it if you don't have a lot of incidents or if you don't. But uh, to me, getting budget, unless they're just totally against it, but getting budget for an health and safety process, if you experience a lot of incidents, if OSHA or some regulatory body comes in, you're going to start getting slapped with massive fines, and then your decision is you're either shut down or, which if you have to find a new job, that's a different different conversation, or you have to make those improvements. So it's easier to do that. When you think about how to get budget, it is what is the value of what we're trying to achieve? Is it healthier, safer people? Is it simplified processes, which will then create those healthier, safer people? And looking and thinking on and off the job. And that's one of the crucial things for me is just that's why we like safe operations, right? It's embedding it into everything. So safety is always a conversation because it's everywhere.
I suppose one of the key takeaways, hopefully, from today is shift the conversation. I mean, we've talked before, haven't we, about this model of moral, legal, and financial in terms of why do we do safety, and the moral bit is kind of it, I hate saying this, but it's almost like the nice to have, isn't it? It's the bit we want to do as safety people, um, but it's not necessarily top of priorities for the rest of the business. Yeah, yeah. But absolutely, they start to sit up and take notice when we talk legal and we talk financial. But often what happens when we talk about that legal and financial bit is the two things are inherently linked together. And actually people say, well, we do safety so that we don't get fined or we don't end up paying out compensation. Well, actually, I think where we're saying to shift the conversation here is actually to think a bit more broadly when it comes to that financial piece and actually see the implications in terms of actually improving the quality and the productivity of your organization to actually drive some financial gains. So I think that's probably our key takeaway at the end of this conversation, isn't it? I hope. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Langdon?
I don't think so. I echo that. Hopefully, everyone is kind of taking the thoughts. It's embedding it, right? The more we can embed it, you start to see that it falls in line. Because I think the moral, financial, legal really. I agree. No matter how you view it, everything can fall under those. So no, I agree, Jules. Excellent end.
Thank you. Great conversation. I'm sure we could carry on talking about it for a while longer, but the clock is ticking. So I'm going to let you close us out, Langdon, with your usual refrain.
Thanks, Jules. Well, hopefully everyone has heard a little piece that they can take to help their own organizations. We'd be more than happy to talk further about this. We love any conversation we can have and help, and then we are open to learning as well. What kind of drives you? But as you are going about your organizations, as you're walking your floors of the factory or construction site or healthcare or whatever, I could say a lot more industry. Just remember you're trying to be as healthy and safe as possible and look out for one another and watch each other's back out there. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Really appreciate you tuning into this episode of Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. Please follow and subscribe to wherever you stream your favorite podcast or visit us at evotics.com.
And if you want to see how follically challenged we really are, come and check us out on YouTube. If you've got value from the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, and in the review section of this podcast, if you could leave us a review or a rating, that would be great.
And as always, everyone, while you're going about your days and about your normal lives, stay safe out there and watch each other's back.